Good afternoon, everybody. Let me welcome you to the next webinar of the European Market Study on Data Skills in Europe. My name is Kasia Jakimowicz from Open Evidence, and I will be a moderator for today's session. This webinar today is a part of a bigger series of webinars on the European Market Study that are being held over the course of 2 years. And the webinar today will focus on a data market in general and discuss data skills and data skill gaps from the perspective of European data economy and educational perspective. So let me introduce our keynote speakers first. We have today with us Mr. Giorgio Micheletti from IDC, as well as Rosanna Lifonti, representing IDC as well, and Professor John Dominic from the Open University. So we will start with a general introduction. I will briefly tell you about how to deal with organizational issues during the webinar. Then Giorgio Micheletti from IDC will briefly present the European Market Study objectives. After that, Rosanna Lifonti will focus on the market perspective. She will discuss who the European data workers are, what their skills are, and what the demand is. And finally, Professor John Dominic from the Open University will shed the light on the education for data skills. We will end up with open discussions and Q&A session. And please bear in mind that during the presentations, your microphones will be silent. You can post questions and raise hand if you want to take the voice. But all the questions going to be addressed after the presentation during open discussion and Q&A. So I will pass the voice right now to Giorgio Micheletti.
Thank you, Kasia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Giorgio Micheletti. I'm consulting manager for the European consulting team here in Milan of IDC, and my role is to project manage our engagements, and I'm currently taking care of this project, this study on the European data economy, which we would like to present, or at least to make familiar with over the next few minutes. So the study is a huge engagement which started at the beginning of 2014, and it's carried out by IDC here and by Open Evidence, who's taking care primarily of the data dissemination and communications activities. It is carried out for the DG Connect, and in particular for the data value chain unit. What is the main goal of this study? The study focuses on a new phenomenon, which we defined data economy, or the data market. The idea is to find a workable and shared definition of this new phenomenon, is to also assess the phenomenon and to measure it. This is particularly important and I would say challenging. We need to assign a value and say how big is this data economy and this market in Europe. The idea is to provide material for policy making at the level of the data value chain, because as you can see here in these few bullets, the data value chain policy has to create an innovative data ecosystem, which has to create competition and I would say competitiveness for Europe vis-a-vis its main competitors when it comes to data-driven economy, and it has to foster commercial and social added value. So not just for the economy and for European companies and enterprises, but also for the society as a whole. The results of this study are therefore particularly important and need to be integrated with the steer towards the data-driven economy, and they are therefore very and highly visible. So what we've done to measure and to apprehend the data economy, first of all, we've looked at the data value chain, which is in the middle of this slide. So we have defined and described all the different stages where data are clearly created and collected, but then are stored and aggregated. Then they are analyzed, and finally they are used or reused. Then we have looked at the data industry per se. We have looked at what the key stakeholders are, and we found the different types of stakeholders here. We found that the classic consultancy and research companies are using the data, but we found also the typical IT and business services companies, and we found, most importantly, the enterprises leveraging the data technologies, namely those who are really creating the data, who probably constitute the bulk and the skeleton of this nascent data industry. And of course, we've also looked into the so-called ICT enablers, so all the companies that create and provide software, hardware, relational database, everything that makes a data that makes it possible to create the data and collect the data and store the data and so on. What's important of this slide, however, is the top side here of it, because in order to define the so-called data market and data economy, we have looked into the framework conditions that are necessary to have a workable and working and viable data market. And among these framework conditions, then you can see that we have the skills. So skills are particularly fundamental in Europe and elsewhere when we want to look at the data market and the data economy, and therefore we will look at the concept of data workers and the skills that are necessary to develop the market. And this is an aspect that my colleague Rosanna will take into consideration in the next few slides. One thing that I wanted to stress is that if this is the way we looked at the market at the very beginning, we've also looked at the so-called data landscape, so mainly open evidence in its activity of creating and building a community around data, has looked at the data economy of the data market from a slight different perspectives, but coming to more or less the same results. So we've got a data market as described, let's say, or visualized by this inner circles, and inside this data market, again, we've got companies like marketplaces and analytics and vertical applications, namely enterprises leveraging the data technologies, which are the bulk, as I said, of the data industries. What we got also, as you can see here on the top of the highlighted circle, we've got the ICT enablers, and we've got the providers of cross infrastructures. So this is another slightly different way of looking at the data economy and the data industry, but bringing more or less the same results. What did we actually do to size the so-called data market. We said that yes, the idea is to define it, is to describe it, but then we also have to provide a series of indicators, namely to attach some values to a series of measurements, say. So the first element that we calculated. So here you see in this slide, you see the 6 main indicators that we have been measuring, that we recently shared with the European Commission in the first round of measurements. As I said, that the study is to continue for another year and a half, so we will have another round of measurements. But the first element that we clearly had to come up with is, I would point directly to the indicator number 4, so the data market size. So we had essentially to attach a value and to say, okay, the so-called data market is that big, is valid, and is valuable of this number of millions across the EU. I start from this because this is clearly the starting point of the whole exercise, and because this gives you an idea of the phenomenon that we are trying to describe here. We're not talking when talking the data economy or the data market. We're not talking the simple concept of big data. Well, simple. We're not talking specific technologies only. We are touching upon a series of phenomena and technologies that are strictly linked to the creation of innovation in Europe and in the different elements or in the different parts of the European industry. So we're looking not just of single specific technologies, but the way these technologies are used and the way these technologies create data and allow to derive added value from data. So with this in mind, we first of all calculated the size of the data market itself, when we calculated for the total and we provided also a forecast for the next 5 years of this indicator. From this, we also calculated the number of the so-called data companies, so the indicator number 2. In other words, if we say that the data industry is made of all the components that I've showed you in the previous slides, and we had to somehow apprehend the phenomenon and see how big is this phenomenon in Europe. So we essentially counted the number of so-called data companies. From this and from the indicator number 4, clearly sizing the market, we came up with the revenues produced by those identified data companies. And from this, we calculated the number of data workers, and Rosanna is now going to provide you more details on this on this element. But also, we looked into other elements, again, extremely important for this webinar, which are the data workers skill gap, the indicator number 5. So we know the skills are a fundamental framework condition to allow Europe to have a workable and viable data economy. But what are these skills, and what is this the gap, if one exists, in Europe when it comes to the necessary skills to have a workable data market? And we also looked finally the indicator number 6, so the so-called citizens' data economy. So in other words, we wanted to measure the level of reliance on data that the citizens have today already in Europe. So with this in mind, I'll now leave the word to my colleague Rosanna, who will dive into the elements of the data workers, and in particular to the skills that are related to the data workers. Thank you. Rosanna.
Good afternoon, this is Rosanna. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes.
All right. So I'm going to present to you, as Giorgio was saying, the main conclusion results about the data workers, which is one of the more important indicators of this industry. And we are going to see who are the data workers, what they do in their jobs, what are their skills, and what is the demand. Data workers are a reality to all industries and European Union countries. We have estimated that in 2014, we have about more than over 6 million of data workers with an annual growth of 6%, and they represent 3% of the total employment of European Union. They are distributed into all the European countries and in all the industries with different intensity, but I would say that the intensity of data workers is well distributed among both industries and countries. What do? They produce and use data, products, and services. They work, they operate into the supply chain that Giorgio showed you just a few minutes ago. How did we do the estimates about data workers? We have gone through statistical definition of data workers adopting using the ISCO occupation and the official statistical data about employment. We have crossed them using a number of criteria which were focusing on occupation of data work, and that can be involved either as data providers and data users. We have selected a number of codes where data workers can be significant, and we have gone through understanding how many data workers could be working in each industry based on statistical data about unemployment. And then we have analyzed the codes referring to occupation and providing enabling technology and tools. Based on that, we have been able to estimate the number of data workers I presented some minutes ago. An important aspect is that data workers have a mixed occupation and they are mainly high and medium professionals. Over 65% are professionals or technicians, and over 20%, about 23-24% of them are managers who support the activity of decision making and day-by-day activity with data. Why? What do? They rationalize production, they target marketing initiatives, they decide the best prices, for example. As a consequence, we can say that data workers are not only people producing numbers, data, algorithms, but they also, and I would say that this is a relevant aspect of their activity, they deal with decision, with strategy, was planning. Therefore, we didn't count the full-time data workers, but clearly the data workers we have estimated include also people working with data for a relevant, significant part of their activity. What kind of skills do they need to add value to data? They need a huge number of skills that goes from analytical skills, which is mainly math and statistics, elaboration of algorithms, ability to building models. They need technical core skills, which is programming, using databases, and file systems. But they also need domain and business knowledge, which means that they need to understand processes of their specific industry where they use data. They have to understand trends, business changes, and organizational aspects and the strategic development, since data are one of the main input for understanding and producing forecasts about industry. And last but not least, I would say that they need important soft skills which are communication ability, to transform analytical insights into recommendations, for example, and the ability to work in team and with people having multidisciplinary skills. And finally, they need some competences which are the ability to have analytical approaches and creativity to face very complex issues with some creativity and producing new solutions. Clearly, we can't find all these skills into one single person. So it is very important that companies can can gather people having all these skills. So I would say that what is important is to have a team where these skills are well distributed. This is a strategic aspect because it's easy to understand that for large companies it will be easy to collect or to gather people with such skills, but for SMEs this can be a barrier to the use of data. Well, here I would like to show you how data workers are present in all EU countries. As you can see, in European Union, in average, data workers represent 3% of total employment, with Luxembourg having 5% of data workers and Romania having only 2% of data workers. But this is not a huge variability, clearly. And this distribution relates to the occupational structure of the country and to the structure of the industry structure of the country, which relates also to the readiness to use data and the readiness to ICT use. Finally, I would like to tell you something about the gap analysis between demand and supply of data workers. Well, the data worker supply is provided by the official educational system in university, by the specialized training and learning on the job. The data worker demand is provided by companies using and supplying data, and by clearly institution, government, organization, and so on. The main point is that I would like to underline is that supply takes time to change, because a policy in the supply require at least 3-4 years to get some changes and to show that supply can increase in order to match the demand. The issue here is whether skill gap may become a barrier to innovation and competitiveness in Europe. Can this have some impact on the competitiveness of Europe? At the moment, our feeling is that there is not a deep gap, but it clearly depends on how much and how fast the data workers demand and the data demand will increase in the next years. Well, I have done, and I will give the floor to Professor Domenica of Open University.
I'm John Demang from the Knowledge Media Institute at the Open University. I'm going to talk about a specific European project called the European Data Science Academy, which is funded by the unit on the data value chain. And this project, the aim of this project is to exactly address the issues of the data skills gap. So let me give you an overview of the project, and then I'll delve into some specific parts. We have this end-to-end approach for addressing the data skills gap. Firstly, we're carrying out demand analysis. I'll say more about that in a minute, to determine what the demand is, as talked about by the previous presenters. We have an industrial advisory board and various stakeholder communities. So by getting input from all of these methods, we create a curriculum for data science. And then we have a process that we go through to make sure that the materials we produce are of high quality. We have a collection of knowledge sources. We create slides and give a webinar. We take the feedback from that first webinar from our stakeholders to create an initial version of our module. Then we go through the same process again and produce a final module, which will become either an ebook or a MOOC course. At the delivery stage, we deliver what we have to students, and we carry out learning analytics. I'll say more about in a moment, and that's used to facilitate reflection and repurposing and configuration of our curricula. So let me show you some elements of this diagram. So I start with the dashboard. So we will soon have on the website a live dashboard where you'll be able to select any region in Europe. So I first select the UK, and then you get two things. You get from our online survey indications of capacity and capability for the region selected, according to subfields. One of the previous speakers talked about the specific topics that one needs to know to carry out data science. So you see we have the subfields of, for example, machine learning, data skills, advanced computing. And then below is we apply data analysis ourselves. So we carry out data mining on LinkedIn jobs. So this is a real-time map of the skills related to big data and data science in LinkedIn. I can select a subtopic, for example, advanced computing, and then I get a demand for the areas associated with advanced computing. So here we have coding, cloud computing, programming, and Python. So this helps us, this provides evidence for the curricula that we should create. Another element to what we're doing in the project is to create rich, highly interactive ebooks. So I have a short video that I'll show you the types of material. And there's an emphasis here on interactivity. So I'll just turn the music down. So this is from another project, but we will create a similar type of book in EDSA. This is a project where we're looking at internet protocols.
John, we cannot hear the voice.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I'll just turn it down.
I hear you.
So, you can hear me now, I hope. So within this book, there are various interactive elements. What you can see now is a connection to a large computational infrastructure actually running in Ghent. So the idea with books like this is that the students will be able to play with various data sets without leaving the book, as well as looking at the text and videos and answering questions on exercises. So they can do everything within the book without leaving it. Okay, so let me move on to the next element. We will deliver our materials in a variety of ways, one of which is through MOOCs. So MOOCs are these massive open online courses, which have been highly present in the press. Here's one of the more radical press cuttings that I've seen from The Guardian, saying, do MOOCs mean the end for traditional universities? So various companies have been spun out by Stanford and MIT and Harvard, so Coursera, edX, and Udacity. And these MOOCs get lots and lots of sign-ups for the materials. The Open University, we have our own MOOC company called FutureLearn, which was created in autumn of 2013, and already we've had over 1 million sign-ups and 2.2 million course sign-ups. We're running one course now on English, and that has over 400,000 students. So one can really have great reach through these means. Learning through these types of mechanisms, through ebooks and through MOOCs, is a different style of learning to standard university education. There's a phrase called the flipped classroom, where the students learn beforehand, they consume the materials, face-to-face in the class, it's interactive, question answering, and then after they can view the material. So here's a graphic showing what our learners in MOOCs are actually doing. So if you imagine there are 400,000 students on the course, 53% of those will typically carry out one or more steps. 40% will make comments on the materials, 82% are very active, 44% are return, 23% fully participate. So you get only a subset of the students actually completing the course to the end, but you start out with 400,000. So you're still having a large impact. Another area where we're self-applying data science to teaching data science is in what we call learning analytics. So here we carry out data analysis on the interactions that students have with the learning management systems. So this is a system we've deployed currently in 18 Open University courses, which have over 1,000 students in each course. What you can see at the top is a graph of assignments. So this is the percentage marks or the average mark in the assignments that the students are completing. And the light blue are the previous presentation of the course compared to the dark blue, which is the current presentation of the course. So here the tutors can see how the students are how well they're achieving compared to previous presentations of the same material. Below are individual students. And what the system can do is it can carry out analysis of the student activities compared to previous presentations and predict, which is the second to final column, predict what the next assignment score will be. So, so this can alert the tutor to say, okay, here's the student in some trouble. Other things one can do with this, here's a map for an individual student. And here, a particular student can be compared to other students who may be similar in their interactions with the learning management systems, or similar in their background, in their demographic, maybe by age, gender, or where they live, for example. So we'll be applying learning analytics to all of the EDSA courses. So to summarize what we're doing in EDSA, there are three main elements. There's a curricula and courseware that we'll be producing, which will be interactive, as I showed you. These will be openly available. There'll be a mix of core curricula, domain-specific curricula, for example, adapting to finance or journalism, and these will be informed by our surveys and demand analysis. Our training, which will be a mixture of face-to-face through summer schools, video lectures, webinar series, will be informed by learning analytics and student feedback. We also garner feedback through by monitoring Twitter feeds and email communication, and then community engagement through some highly visible channels such as FutureLearn. We have a webcasting company, videolectures.net, which has over 20,000 videos. The Open University is part of iTunes U, where we've had over 68 million downloads of our materials since 2008. And in here we'll be carrying out social media monitoring. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, John. Right now, we are going to move to open discussion. Obviously, everybody is muted. I would like everybody that wants to join the discussion to raise hand. There is an icon with hand if you want me to give you the voice. Otherwise, you can post questions or use chat to post questions, and I will address them and ask them to specific speakers. Right now, we have the first question. Eva van Steenbergen, consultant at Capgemini, which is working on the Pan-European Open Data Project from the European Commission, was wondering whether you base the amount of data workers calculation entirely on statistics or field work as well. And I think this is the question to Giorgio and Rosanna.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this is. I would ask Rosanna to jump on this question. She worked directly on this indicator, so she can definitely provide you more insight.
Well, for the estimation of I'm sorry. Hello. Unmuted. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Rosanna. Right now we can hear you. Can you repeat the answer?
Hello?
Because we couldn't hear your answer.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, one more
So,
time.
as I anticipated in the presentation, we have done a huge work based on official statistical data using the ISCO occupation data and the Eurostat employment data disaggregated for the 28 countries by industry, by dimension of the companies. And hello, yeah,
Yes.
and by countries. This analysis then required to estimate the number of data workers by industries and by country. And for this, we could count on the contribution of the survey. We have implemented a number of countries. Clearly, with our survey was not implemented in 28 countries, but in the most important countries in Europe.
Okay. I hope that answered Van Steenbergen question. We have another question from another participant. This is the question to John. The question is, when will the courses be ready?
Hi. So it's ETSA is a 3-year project, and we are hoping to have the bulk of the materials ready next year. However, there's already one course online from the Technical University of Eindhoven on process mining, which you can find if you just go to the website, you'll find it there. We're also right now producing a MOOC on linked data for professionals.
Okay. Another question that I see, let me check. It's also to John, how would someone register for a course?
Yeah, so we have a number of universities involved in the project, and we have external collaborators. So the idea is that we will focus mainly on producing the materials, which will be under a Creative Commons license, and then others will be able to take them up. So one will be able to register for most of our courses as a MOOC in FutureLearn, or you'll have the option of going to either the universities of Southampton, the Technical University of Eindhoven, or Fraunhofer. Sorry, yeah.
Hello. We still have a lot of background noise, but let me check whether we have additional questions from participants. Right now, I don't see any questions. I don't see any hands raised. Giorgio, would you like to add something to your presentation? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We always have some issues with some background noise. So no, I don't. I mean, if there are other questions, of course we're here to be happy to respond to them. What I could add is, as I said, the project is ongoing. It's a quite huge effort from our side, for IDC, for Open Evidence, and the other parties that are in this project. We have already as I said, we have deliveries already. One of them is the latest delivery quantifying the first round of indicators. My colleague Rosanna has presented some top numbers. Just to say that there will be more. There is already out more, but it's currently within the Commission, and it's currently being validated. Right, so we could not, and we didn't want to show this beforehand. But certainly, there is already much more available, and there will be more in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, so I don't see any additional questions. So I would like to thank you for participation in the webinar. The webinars, the audio and the presentations and the whole material from the webinar is going to be available online within the next days on the webpage datalandscape.eu. So thank you very much for participation, and I hope that you're going to attend the next webinars to come.